Hi everyone, so I went on a 7-day cruise to the Mexico Riviera. Alone. While solo travel is a new frontier for me, saying you're going on a solo cruise is still one of those ideas that will cause people to raise an eyebrow of skepticism. This video is the first in a new How I Did It series about my solo cruise. We'll find out how crazy it was and if it's a small great change you'd consider making yourself. I'm going to approach this exactly like I did a similar video about my Swiss Alps adventure and list in no particular order the top 5 things that made the solo cruise amazing. I like to provide context whenever I give advice, so note this was my first cruise outside of a Disney cruise 12 plus years ago. So I can't compare this cruise to what other cruise lines do. This is just how this Norwegian Cruise Line adventure worked for me. So, the top 5 things that made the cruise awesome. Norwegian freestyle cruising. Freestyle means Norwegian cruises work more like staying in a well-appointed hotel that just happens to float around and move to some interesting places. But isn't this what all cruises are? Sort of. But some still have set meal settings and then you sit with the same cruisers every evening. Some people like that. Personally, as an introvert, since it takes quite a bit of energy for me to do the sort of enforced social situation, I prefer to choose when that happens. On this Norwegian cruise, I had shows, entertainment and restaurants I could book or just literally rock up to and enjoy like you were on a very well appointed land-based hotel. It was brilliant, seamless and well executed. I could do what I wanted when I wanted in pretty much a frictionless manner. 2. The solo experience. Norwegian has pricing for solo travellers and accepts that they exist. They even have specific stateroom types for solo guests, though you don't necessarily have to use them to access the solo traveller friendly pricing. Obviously this attitude links in with the freestyle approach as well, as the two are seamless together. How did this experience manifest? Well, simply the fact no one cared that I was on my own. I met a number of other solo travellers without really actually trying on the cruise. Importantly, the staff didn't care. One concern people have is eating at the non-buffet restaurant solo. If you want to, and it's just you are worrying about it feeling odd, don't. I happily did it a number of times and literally no one cared. None of the other guests cared. There was always someone else doing it. The staff were brilliant and just served me like anyone else without even raising an eyebrow. I would like to call out the service experience on Norwegian, as I'd not got it as one of the 5. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. You see many people complaining about the service on Norwegian, often people who mostly use other cruise lines. I suspect this is an expectations gap. I found the Norwegian staff had mastered a subtle art of being available, friendly and informative, without being overly attentive and sycophantic. Basically, they were there and amazing when I chose to interact or they had a service to deliver, such as at a restaurant, but didn't treat me like royalty and hang around me like flies. They weren't there to make me feel important, just to make my cruise frictionless. That is exactly what I wanted, and I couldn't praise them enough. Of course, some people want to feel a bit more like they are royalty and feel important, and if so, I'd recommend a different line or possibly go Haven, as there you literally get a butler. 3. The Norwegian Bliss ship. I actually chose a Norwegian cruise because of the freestyle approach and a fascination with the Norwegian Bliss. I freely admit Norwegian have done an excellent marketing exercise with the Bliss. I don't believe I'm the only one who has been drawn into cruising through a combination of freestyle and the way they market the Bliss. As I said at the beginning, possibly the facilities on the Bliss aren't unique, but I'm happy to admit I did become obsessed with that ship. The marketing that reached me and my experience on the Bliss was in perfect alignment. There was no horrible gaps in expectation and I got exactly what I'd researched. It's hard to pin down what it is about the ship, but I think it has something to do with it being a well-appointed environment without it being overly opulent. Basically, I felt like it was a nice and classy without triggering my too posh to feel comfortable trigger. I guess you could say in a Disney sense, it felt like the effortless style of the Polynesian or Animal Kingdom, rather than the too posh for comfort, colonial opulence of the Grand Floridian. This meant I felt at home and totally relaxed, just sitting and reading on the pool deck, the waterfront promenade, or the observation lounge. It created a brilliant, disconnected and relaxing experience. It was absolutely phenomenal. Then we have free at sea. One thing I really wanted to avoid in my cruise was feeling like I didn't have control of the costs. Norwegian often get a reputation of nickel and diming you, as not everything is included in the stateroom price. I actually came away with a different view of this. There is a fine line between nickel and diming and effective discretionary pricing. I felt like Norwegian Cruises was well into the latter territory. There was stuff that was an extra charge, but I always knew what that was and had a choice to do it. I wasn't being cheated out of anything. There was nothing I felt I had to pay for. I felt it was like I was being offered sensible choices rather than being conned or ripped off. If you throw in free at sea, which is essentially makes the experience more like an inclusive deal, then you're onto a roll. I chose the beverage and dining package. This meant I had an open bar for 7 days. As you can imagine, it was very easy to break even and make a profit, even though I don't actually drink alcohol much. The dining package gave me 3 specialty restaurant visits for 50 quid as well. And while that's not as a good a deal, I mean the beverage deal can be pretty crazy, it's still a good deal. There was no hidden costs for either of these for me. It was £99, 0 other charges on the actual cruise bill. Free at sea, at least for the UK and potentially Europe, includes all tips. Nothing is added to your room bill other than the £99. This allows for nationalities without a big tipping culture and a liking for all-inclusive arrangements to totally avoid such cultural complexities. I'm a big fan of the way Norwegian does free at sea, and it really worked. Finally, but by no means least, was the Excursions. And this one did surprise me. I had plans to do the whole independent traveller thing when I hit the ports. I had a bit of a delusion of grandeur. Not necessarily because of the cost, but just because that's what I'm used to doing on these adventures. It's how I did the Canadian Rockies, and it's how I did the Swiss Alps. It didn't really work out that way, I have to be honest. As I said, it was a bit of a delusion of grandeur. When it came to Mexico, I hit my current not comfortable line. It wasn't that I didn't feel safe. It was purely that it felt sufficiently foreign, combined with a lack of research, which was my own undoing, that it just felt a bit too much. I felt a bit out of my depth. It didn't help that the first experience in Port of Vallarta was a barrage of people trying to sell me something as soon as they realised I was a tourist. It was very intense. I learned on my trip to Walmart in Port of Vallarta to pipe the Wi-Fi, to put my camera away. And I'd taken the small camera. It's not like I was walking around with my M50 and a microphone. Just because I needed to stop looking like a tourist. As soon as I looked like a tourist, I had suspicious men intensely dragging on woodbines, asking me about my camera as a prelude to engaging me in conversation, to divulge me to take my hard-earned US dollars. After my Port of Vallarta experience, I did take a second look at the tours for Mazatlan and Cabos Las Santos, and they were great. I did a hike to the highest lighthouse in the world. I think that's what it was. I think it's the highest, or it's the highest of a certain type. And then I did an electric bike adventure through the desert and along the Pacific coast, and they were just phenomenal. I'm going to cover my tours in another video, but at this point I'll say they were impeccably organised by Norwegian, and the tour guides and staff on the ones I went on were great. They added to the experience, right? They didn't take away from it. In the case of my hike to the lighthouse in Mazatlan, he was so good I was glad I didn't do it independently, because it was better with the guide. I fully went into the cruise expecting to avoid excursions, but they turned out to be 2 of the best experiences of the cruise and were truly memorable. So, was there some things that didn't work out as well or went differently than expected? Yeah, The unique things like the laser tag and the go-karts. I'm going to do a full review of the go-karts in this series, but I wasn't so excited by them as I thought I would be. I even cancelled my laser tag experience as it just felt pointless. But by the time I'd got 6 days in the cruise, I wasn't really interested in it. But they did reimburse the cost of the booking, which I thought was pretty cool. The lifts are a problem on the Norwegian Bliss, but not so much for me as they are for others. The majority of the time, the number of people on the ship wasn't an issue as they dispersed across the vessel. The only times it could be a bit irritating if you tried to use the lift when everyone had come out of the theatre or something like that. It was more an irritation for me and easily could be solved by just walking up and down a few floors. As a fit person, obviously I have this advantage. But if you really have to take the lifts at peak times, it can be a bit irritating. But as I said, it was fine for me. I mean, hell, I did 15k steps a day on the Norwegian Bliss. I did more steps on ship than I do at home during my normal working life. I can toss in a few other things like the occasional group of roaming teenagers or people bedding down in the observation lounge. But these were sort of more of an eye-rolling, momentary observation rather than anything remotely cruise destroying. In terms of my overall solo cruise experience with Norwegian, I can't do anything but recommend it. It was the most relaxing, disconnected, punctuated with more exciting excursions experience that I've had in a good long time. And I'd almost certainly go on another one should I find the right combination of itinerary and ship. I don't think I'm going to become a crazy serial cruiser, but some of the cruises are ridiculously cheap, considering it's all-inclusive from a food and drink perspective. Please post a comment if you've had a solo cruise experience on Norwegian or you've been on another cruise line solo. I'd be very interested in that and how alternatives play out. If you're considering doing anything similar and have questions, please don't hesitate to post them in the comments. Until next time, you can support me very easily by doing a few simple things. Like the video, subscribe, post a comment, hit the bell icon, and let's continue to make small great changes to make life a story worth telling.